Hello and welcome to the FEZ show on the 22nd of May 2020. We have had some Race at Home Challenge news with the addition of Berlin, which will be racing on tomorrow. So joining me to preview the fifth round of the Race at Home Challenge is William Dodds and Jack Pickering. Morning, boys.
Good morning.
Hi, Jack. Hi, Jack.
I know, double Jack Attack. We haven't had a Jack Attack episode for a while, but Will, it's great to have you back on.
Yeah, good to be here. Excited for the latest instalment of the Race at Home series.
I know, Berlin. So we've been fueling this DLC now for like 3-4 weeks, and to finally have, an announcement and a track that has been announced in Berlin, Jack, is amazing. It's really good. So what was your impressions that we got Berlin?
Hallelujah. If I'm completely honest. I'm so happy that we got another track. It's been a long time coming. I'm very happy. We're not going to Monaco. We're not going to Electric Docks. We're not going to Hong Kong. We're going to another track, and it's Berlin. So it's fantastic.
It was something, Will, that the series needed to do massively, because the championship was becoming stale. Even if we look at the sim racers who were qualifying for the event, they're getting lower and lower and lower. It started at 109, and now I think last time I checked Friday night there was 40 people. I was one of them. Who had qualified for the sim race event for this weekend. So it needed something to freshen it up.
No, I totally agree on that point, Jack. I think that you can't kind of keep going around the same three tracks, especially when one of them isn't actually even a kind of real track that they use in the calendar. It's great news as well that it's Berlin, because I think that's a track that most people kind of really enjoy, and it's just gonna be exciting to see them going around somewhere else. Pretty much echo kind of the thoughts of both of you that this is definitely some good news for the series.
If the Race at Home Challenge series, however you want to call it, was actually doing a sort of energy management race, Berlin would be amazing to see it, Jack, because Berlin is probably one of the toughest, along with Marrakesh, on energy management. So it would have been great to potentially maybe have seen an energy management race as part of the Race at Home Challenge in Berlin.
Marrakesh is obviously the longest track of the season at almost just over 3 kilometers. And then Berlin, the current configuration that we've been racing on for the last few years, it's very flat out. You've got the long run into turn one, and then you've got the thing like China double backing on you, and then another flat and also turns. I think it's 7 and 8. I might be wrong, but I think turns 7 and 8 are is the flat out section before you break into the hairpins at turn 9, turn 10. Could be wrong. Might have got that completely mixed up. But no, I think it's absolutely fantastic that that we got a new circuit, and had it been a little bit longer, who knows, we might have seen some energy management.
Yeah, £7.14. Now, obviously, that's UK price. Euros, it's probably like €8. And God knows how many dollars. I can't be asked doing the conversion. But a tad expensive, Will. But cheaper than iRacing, because iRacing, if you have a new track, it's about, some tracks can be like 11, 12, 14 pounds on iRacing. And I know RFactor 2 is like a proper sim build, and it's supposed to be as realistic as possible. And they're also trying to improve their graphics. So I can probably explain the price. But when Monaco was £6, it's only 2 kilometers, and you've got some longer tracks, which is like Le Mans, for example, which is 8 kilometers. And I think you can buy Le Mans for £9. So it is a tad expensive.
Yeah, I guess the thing with kind of advances that we've seen in sim racing in terms of just popularity, but also in terms of like new tracks being added and more people kind of coming to the platforms, I do think that it is going to the costs are going to mount up for people who are trying to kind of do it at home. So that is a shame, but I guess at the same time, compared to the kind of costs of karting, the costs of actually getting to a point where you can kind of start racing cars, sim racing is hugely accessible. So, I mean, like there's a lot that goes into it. And as you said, that, the difference between, playing something like RFactor 2 compared to just like the Formula One game is that it's very realistic, and it's a genuine simulation rather than a game. And that's kind of takes research and money and investment. So I can understand perhaps why, they have to charge kind of a decent amount of money for it.
So, yeah, I tend to agree. Like, obviously you want something that's decent, and obviously I think all RFactor 2 tracks are laser scanned. So, that obviously takes some sort of, getting used to. So, Jack, I'm just trying to think actually, if, Formula E now, they've released Berlin, but we've still got a few tracks left to actually, like, do a race. So it looks like we probably will be rotating and going back to Hong Kong or back to Monaco. Or do you think that maybe in a couple of weeks' time we might see another pack potentially come out? Or do you think Berlin is just the only one we're going to get?
Well, technically, if we have, hang on, I think I'm doing my maths right because we've had 4 tracks and there's 8 races. So if we have, so we can just have 2 races per track. So yeah, obviously that's still not ideal at the end of the day, and yeah, we should, and yeah, I wish that we would have had more tracks, but it's not looking likely. There's still a rumor about Mexico City, but we're not 100% sure on whether it's going to happen or not. But at least they've got one new track for this. But yeah, I do still wish that we had.
I have a feeling, Will, that Mexico, because we spoke about Mexico possibly being, one of the races that, they'd use. And then as soon as we mentioned that, the modder that creates all the modded tracks for Formula E on RFactor 2, created the Mexico track. And it had all the official DHL sponsorship, the Michelin sponsorship, the Julius Baer sponsorship, which you would see on the Berlin track. But, it was free. Whereas normally when that guy creates a modded track, they're all fake sponsors. So we were quite interested that Formula E might have been looking to the modded community to maybe do that Mexico race, and they still could potentially, because it does actually have the official sponsorships. But maybe because it's not a laser scan track and it does look different compared in terms of its build to, if you look at the Berlin pictures, it looks completely different. So maybe they won't go to the modded community, but with the sponsorship being on that track, which is normally and it would never happen in a modded community track. I thought that was interesting. I mean, you never know, Formula E could still go there.
Yeah, it's probably something to look into, if you get into this situation when they want to extend the season. You can't just have kind of a continued season where it's just going around in this kind of Monaco and Hong Kong kind of purgatory. So maybe that is something they look into. Obviously, if they are going for this kind of highly accurate model and they want the racing to be as realistic as possible and as much of a proper simulation as possible, then maybe there is a risk going to kind of a modded track that hasn't been properly laser scanned. And the racing is a very exacting art, and it doesn't take much to be slightly different for things to potentially go quite wrong, because the drivers have put in a lot of practice to kind of get to the level that they are. I'm not to say that I doubt that they would be able to get used to a modded track if there were some slight kind of differences, but I think it is important also that we're trying to be as accurate as possible.
So I'm just looking at the calendar right now. So we have obviously Berlin this week, Jack. Next week we don't know where we're going to go. Probably I'm going to assume we're probably going to go to a Leicester, because that makes sense. Because we've already done Hong Kong twice and we've done Monaco twice, so go to Leicester for a second time, and then the 6th and 7th, of June, and then you'd probably end at Berlin again to have a double header at, Berlin, technically doing that twice. So then you would have done every track that Formula E can use twice.
Yeah, no, if I had to pick a circuit to end on, I'd definitely go Berlin, because the other 3 I think we saw with Monaco, we just saw the crash fest coming down the narrow section down the hill. Hong Kong, we saw a crash fest into turn 1, and then in Leicester we saw a crash fest at the chicane. And so I think by process of elimination, the best place to have an end of season would be in Berlin.
That's one thing where we've got to avoid. We have to avoid a crash fest like we had in Hong Kong, because it was just a joke in terms of how silly it looked. And then even for me to see Formula E publicise, that mess that we saw, at turn 1 in Hong Kong, and all the negative comments that have come with it, I didn't think it was good PR. I know sometimes they say, bad PR is good PR at the same time, but in terms of attracting people to watch this racing series when you have your drivers literally half the field crashing into each other, it doesn't look very good.
Yeah, and maybe you get a few more hits on the YouTube channel and on a couple of clips watching a massive crash, but I don't think that's going to make people actually want to sit down and kind of invest time and interest in something where all the major players are just going to be taken out in a kind of huge pile up at turn one. I don't think that is good for the kind of longevity of the kind of race at home series, if this is something that Formula E want to kind of stick with. So yeah, I mean, in terms of the sim racing events that I've enjoyed the most, it's always been the ones that are quite realistic, and when there's kind of been limited crashing, and when if people have crashed and they've kind of been penalised for it, because that's what happens in real racing. So I think that it's really important they avoid that, and I don't think that kind of publicising these big crashes or kind of making them into a kind of a feature of the product is a good idea. I think the most important thing is to get it realistic and to make it as interesting and competitive a race as possible.
Exactly, and hopefully Berlin will do that, because it's a bit more open. There's a bit more space. Now the problem, obviously, Jack, with Formula E tracks is how narrow they are, and in real life, okay, they're able to avoid it without massively hitting each other because they're professional racing drivers. These drivers, you have to remember, are not professional sim racers, but you'd still expect them to sort of get through the first corner in a tight streets track on a simulation, fairly smoothly, because we've seen it at electric docks. We saw it at Monaco. Did we see it at Monaco? That's a lie. But we saw it at electric docks with that tight chicane that they were able to sort of manage to get through quite well. So fingers crossed that with Berlin, with the space that we've got, it won't look terrible.
Yeah, and also to point out, we only saw it in the second Hong Kong race. In the first Hong Kong race, it was a very, very clean getaway in through turn one. It was just last time out, it was an absolute crash fest, and so it was an absolute mess. But no, I think with Berlin, it's a lot easier because they're racing on a airport apron. It is a lot easier to go around there. The thing is, a lot of these Formula E tracks aren't as narrow as people say they are. People think that they're like the size of like alleyways in London, but no, they're not. They are most of them are quite wide. So that Paris is quite wide down the two straights. And places like that. However, Hong Kong is one of the smaller circuits to get around. So it's obviously going to happen like that. But with Berlin, there's plenty of room, especially into where the attack mode zone usually is. Is that turn 6? If I've based it right off my two previous corners that I've said, then yes, it is turn 6. But yeah, no, I think there it's the widest point on the Formula E calendar, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I think that Berlin is going to be fantastic for the Race at Home Challenge.
The thing is now, in terms of what I want to talk about next, is like if Formula E needs like a specific game, because Formula E have been doing a lot of work mobile game wise, Real Racing 3, getting in that. They've recently announced something on Asphalt 8 where you can try drifting the Gen 2 car, which is great. It's great to see Formula E in those types of games. But I think this Race at Home Challenge would have decided the need, if there is an actual need for a specific Formula E game, and if there's interest in it. Now, personally, I think that's still debatable. I think Formula E probably need a game so that they can jump to sim racing at a far more accessible rate, and just a game where lots of people could potentially buy, and then you've got a game and you've got your own platform rather than using someone else's platform. But because of how awkward and I don't think it's been a success, the Race at Home Challenge so far, I don't know if that increases the interest for people wanting to actually own a Formula E game.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. Is Formula E at a level of popularity where it can kind of basically kind of legislate for creating its own game? Will there be enough people who are interested in buying it? And if they are going to kind of make it very good, then it will probably cost a lot of money. I think probably the best idea for now is to kind of continue the partnership with RFactor 2, potentially try and get more of the current tracks built. I think that way, people are not just getting kind of Formula E, they're also getting kind of everything else that RFactor 2 has to offer. And I also think that it's probably best for Formula E to continue going down the accurate simulation route than going down the kind of game route. I think there's always going to be more interested in that, because I just don't think that Formula E is kind of quite potentially widespread enough in its fan base just to have people who kind of want to play it as a game. I think that the best option in terms of the interest is with the continued kind of accurate simulation.
No, I tend to agree. I don't think the fan base is there, and if you had a specific Formula E game, then people wouldn't. Well, people would buy it. I'd buy it, and I'm pretty sure we'd buy it. Everyone here, but the casual person might not buy it. Whereas a lot of casual people buy F1 2019. I don't think Formula E is in that place where people will just casually buy a Formula E game. So I do think the RFactor 2 route is probably the best route to go down, Jack. But with the prices, obviously, of the tracks and everything being quite separate. So, £7.14, it was like £6 for Monaco. To buy the pack for the Formula E cars on Hong Kong, it was like £13, £11. And then you've got the game on top of that, so you have to buy RFactor 2, which is another £26 on Steam. Then, if you want to have more tracks in the game, the price quickly ramps up, and all of a sudden, I know you're buying it technically in installments, but once you look at a collective, you'll be looking at about £70-80 to just have if you wanted just to race Formula E cars, which is quite expensive. But Will is totally right in terms of, yes, you can then race on F1 tracks and F1 cars and different cars for that, through the modded community and through whatever RFactor 2 has made for free. But obviously there are other packs for RFactor 2 as well, in terms of like GT packs and other track packs that you'd have to use to buy, and that's more money on the game.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna go ahead and buy it yet, because I think that £8, that what was it, £7.14
£7.14,
is not.
Yeah,
it's just not worth it for just a track. I reckon what they should do is they should mod a few other tracks, and so make it say like 6-7 tracks, bundle that 6-7 tracks, including like Leicester, Hong Kong and Monaco, include the Gen 2 pack, and then sell it for what, 40-45 quid. Absolute bargain there. I'd go for that then. But to pay £7 for a track is, I just don't do it. And we were talking before the show, and about Toby, who's been on the show a couple of times. He bought it last night, and he told you, Jack, it's not worth it.
Yeah, because you have to remember, even the casual fan, like, RFactor 2 is a proper sim, and if you're not got a proper sim setup, I suppose you don't need a massive sim setup in a sense. Like, you could just have a Logitech G29 like me and a little desk stand, and off you go. You can race on RFactor 2, but for people who don't want to spend that type of money or can't spend that type of money, even in installments on a game, whereas, they're used to the £45 now, the £40, the £50, and you get one game, you get all the cars, you get all the tracks, you get all these extra features that come with it. People are used to that, and they don't want just one specific thing costing so much. So it might be great for the sim community and people who really, really, like me, for example, want to drive Formula E cars. Okay, it's great, you've got RFactor 2, but those people like Jack, for example, who, just want a game but don't want to spend over the odds for a game, aren't that interested in spending this much money on a Formula E game.
No, I'd just like to point out, I desperately want to drive the Formula E cars around Formula E tracks. It's just £8 for a track is way too much. So yeah, I will wait for a while.
Yeah, maybe it's a matter of kind of creating a bundle on RFactor 2 maybe, and that could be a kind of cheaper way of doing it once they've kind of got all the tracks developed. It's a difficult one, because I'm the same. I absolutely love to kind of drive Formula E cars around Formula E tracks. But again, the situation is that not everyone has a great kind of sim setup. So I can understand how a game in that sense is potentially more accessible. It's a really difficult one. I guess they have more access to kind of numbers, and they understand what the kind of level of interest is. So yeah, we'll see.
It sounds like there's a Formula E car in the background.
I was thinking the same.
Am
I
I?
don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It just sounded like you were talking, and there was a starting up of a Formula E engine in the background. It was quite funny. But no,
that could be a washing machine, actually.
that could be the washing machine.
Exciting.
To be fair,
We have literally just offended the series that we love with.
yeah, I know. We've
with
just
what it
said
sounds
said that a Formula E engine, Formula E car.
I
sounds
never
like
thought I'd hear Jackson say that, but
but
well.
that was quite funny. But the question is, Jack, really now is there an appetite for a Formula E game? Which I'm probably assuming that you're going to say yes, but are we ready for a Formula E game?
There is an appetite right here for the Formula E game, but I think quite a few people would get it if they wouldn't be willing to pay an extortionate amount for it. But I think as we've been chatting over the last few minutes, a bundle would be absolutely fantastic. A bundle on RFactor 2, lots of people have RFactor 2 already. So and it's only 25-30 quid on Steam. So yeah, I think a bundle would be absolutely perfect. But in terms of an actual Formula E game, it wouldn't. I don't think it would sell enough copies to make a profit, which I think is the moral of Formula E, unfortunately. But doing an RFactor bundle of the tracks and the cars, I think would be absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I think I brought Assetto Corsa Compengione, the great Italian phrasing there, and I think I got that cheaper than what it was because you can go on different websites on the internet and you can find it. I think I bought it for like £20, but I think on Steam it's like £35, and that's a Blancpain GT3 specific game, and it has all their tracks and so forth. So £35 is not too bad, and if Formula E went down that route, I think that would be a lot more accessible for fans to race on. But in terms of moving on now, obviously we've had no practice, Will, at Berlin, and hopefully the washing machine is not sounding like we're not hearing our washing machine Formula E car anymore. No one's had any practice, so fingers crossed we might have quite a competitive track.
Well, yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure Will's gone, but I'll step in on this one. I think a lack of practice may create some more exciting racing. Obviously, because they've had less. I don't think it'll affect the sim race much, but in the Formula E race, I don't think we'll see the same dominance that we've seen from Max Günther, Stoffel Vandoorne, and Pascal Wehrlein. I think we might see a little bit more jumbled up grid order, and then but yeah, no, in the sim race, I think it's going to be more of the same. I think.
You think? Well, what do you think? Do you think it's going to be more competitive, or is it going to be less competitive? Depending on they haven't had that much time. I suppose they'll be practicing right now as we speak at Berlin, but I suppose it's not as much time as they would usually give to practicing for a sim race.
I guess what we can kind of take from real racing is generally, if they have less practice, it creates a kind of more interesting, potentially kind of jumbled up order and a kind of more dramatic race. So I would probably expect that to be the case tomorrow if they've had less time to practice and the track's only just been released. But at the same time, I guess the kind of more experienced sim racers and the ones who've kind of really put in the hours, you mentioned kind of Günther and Van Dorn, people who potentially were quite into sim racing before this even began. Maybe they'll have the advantage just because they don't potentially need as much practice to kind of pick it up quickly.
Yeah, we saw Mortara obviously get pole jack, and he said he didn't do that much practice. So I suppose it could still be anyone's game, or it might favour those who are probably be more naturally talented at sim racing, like your Verline, your Van Dorn, and your Max Gunther?
Well, yeah. Mortara was a Hong Kong specialist, so I'm trying to think of who is a specialist at Berlin. I think Daniel App got 9th on the grid in Hong Kong, so you never know. After I think 0 points on the board for this race at home challenge for Audi. Who knows? Maybe Daniel App could spring a surprise. Maybe, yeah. I just think it's going to be a lot more jumbled up than usual. I think also the fact that they go out in championship order in the same way that they do in Formula E, that might make it a little bit more exciting, even though that they don't have track evolution. I think it might give those towards the end a bit more of an advantage. Fingers
crossed, because normally once qualifying's finished, once Van Dorn, Gunther, and Gunther, I don't know who the other one is now. Verline. And once they've gone through and they've set their, I'm like, okay, Verline's on pole because no one else is quicker than them. So it's like, it was unlikely. So when I saw Mortara on pole, I was like, oh, I have to change my notes, because for the last couple of races, I've just gone, okay, he's on pole because no one else is quick enough to actually like surpass them. And you're like just waiting for qualifying to finish to start the race because you're like, whew. But boys, just in terms of predictions then, because we're thinking it's going to be a bit more of a competitive race. There might be a bit more up for grabs. Will, who do you think is going to win?
I'll go for a home win for Maxi Günther.
Ooh. Jack?
Right, okay, I was wrong last week, and it was first week that I was wrong. So this week I'm going to try and be even more wrong. I think I am going to stick with Daniel Abt, and just an absolute surprise, a massive surprise from Daniel Abt. If not, I hope he gets a podium. But so no, I'm going to say Daniel Abt.
I'm going to go Daniel Abt. Okay, fine. Interesting. I'm going to say that you're going to be wrong. But no offense, Daniel Abt.
I agree.
No offense.
I agree. Sorry, Daniel.
Yes, if he does win, you should start betting on the lottery.
Oh my God, yes.
If he does win,
I am buying a lottery ticket.
Yeah. I'm gonna go Van Dorn. I keep saying Van Dorn. He's got to win at some point. You can't just be on pole, be near the front. He just needs not to have any crashes and not to damage his car. And hopefully a wide track like Berlin will suit him not crashing into anything. So fingers crossed on a Stoffel Van Dorn victory, and maybe I'll finally get one. I've forgotten, to be fair. I forget who I predict, but I
think you've been wrong every week, mate. So
yeah. I shouldn't.
The only way is up.
I shouldn't buy a lottery ticket, put it that way. Right, boys, we're running out of time. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack.
And we will be back on Monday to review what happens at Berlin. So fingers crossed we have a great race. There's not much of a crash fest. If you've been really enjoying the content, remember to hit that like button and subscribe button. And if you want to come and join us in our Discord channel, hit the link below. Come and have a chat with us. We're very friendly, I think. And that's it. So thank you so much for watching. You've been watching the FEZ show. Goodbye.